Since I've been making videos for the past couple years now, I've always been sort of chasing a camera that has probably the best color science and best dynamic range for under about $3,000, and it seems like the Blackmagic Pocket Cinema Camera 4K happens to be that camera. I've owned it since December, and I gotta say that I've been pretty happy with it so far, and it's been about my favorite camera I've ever owned. I'm shooting this on the Fujifilm X-T3, which is a pretty amazing camera as well, but I don't think it's nearly as good as the Blackmagic Pocket Cinema Camera 4K. So I'm just going to be giving you sort of a personal look at why I like the Blackmagic Pocket Cinema Camera 4K. This isn't really a review about the camera or anything like that. It's more or less just my thoughts after using it, and sort of some pros and a few cons to the camera. So let's get right into it. Since I've started making videos, I've always had a great love for overly cinematic looking videos and great color science. To me, the Pocket 4K does this way better than any other camera in the price range right now. With proper rigging, this camera can look pretty amazing, and it can be pretty practical. A lot of people say it's not a very practical camera for a lot of things, but I don't really agree with that. Everything out of this camera looks extremely natural and really cinematic looking, which I love. You know, it's more of a feel thing rather than a technical thing, but I really love this camera and everything that it has to offer. The main reason I, and probably most people, buy this camera is because of its amazing dynamic range, color science, and low light capabilities. With 13 stops of dynamic range and the option to shoot RAW, the Pocket 4K is a pretty perfect camera to make cinematic images. I've always been super happy with everything I've shot from it. And you simply can't get that out of a Sony or a Canon camera, in my opinion. Shooting handheld with this camera is pretty amazing too. It's something that I've loved to do with it so far, especially with proper rigging with things like a cage and a handle on top. I made a video about my specific setup that I like to use, and I'll link that down below. But like I said, handheld shooting with this camera is pretty amazing. Even while this camera lacks IBIS, the weight and the physical elements of the rig help stabilize it out, and I can even shoot handheld with the Rokinon 85mm, which is an effective 170 on this camera with a Micro Four Thirds sensor. So it's pretty amazing, and it's pretty surprising at what you can do just handheld with this camera. With the Micro Four Thirds mount, finding lenses is not really a problem. For this camera, I use mainly the Panasonic 12-35 f2.8 and the Rokinon 85mm t1.5 cinema lens. If I want a sharper and more versatile lens, I'll usually go with the 12-35. And it also has OIS, which helps a lot, but it's really not necessary because with the 85, if I want a softer and more cinematic looking image, I can go handheld with that and still shoot wide open, and it's still sharp enough to what I like. And it makes a really amazing image, and you get great shallow depth of field with the 85mm. But I have a ton of other lenses too. I have the Olympus 50mm f1.4, which is a vintage lens. It's a pretty amazing lens. I also made a video about that. And I also do the Panasonic 25mm f1.7, which is another great lens for things like portraits. It's an effective 50mm on the Blackmagic Pocket Cinema Camera 4K. If you're looking to make great videos and tell great stories, and have an image that's really dense and rich with color, I think the Blackmagic Pocket Cinema Camera is one that you should at least check out and consider. It's been one of my favorites that I've ever owned so far, along with the X-T3, which is what is filming this right now. If you want a video about the X-T3, let me know in the comments. I did have an X-T1 and I made a video about that, but I've sort of upgraded to the X-T3 for more professional work and for weddings. And it's been a great camera so far, but like I said, let me know if you want an X-T3 video down below, and thanks for watching, and make sure you subscribe and you will get the hottest content you've ever seen in your life. No jokes.